Welcome everyone to the Let's Talk Tech event organized by the Google Student Developer Club chapter at University of London. In this series of events, we'll be interviewing professionals with experience working in tech. I'm Sebastian Ramirez, and I'm the utility player of the GDSC at the University of London. Today, I'll be the moderator, so keep an eye on the chat to forward all of your questions to our speaker at the end of the session. So please feel free to write them down in the Q&A section. Now I open the floor to Cindy.
Hi everyone, my name is Nyamhu, but you can call me Cindy. I'm in charge of public relations at the GDSC at the University of London, and I'm also the project lead for the Let's Talk Tech series. Thank you all for attending. I will be one of the interviewers for this event. Our other interviewer will be Nicola. Nicola, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone, I'm Nicola, final year student of computer science at University of London, technical coach at the GDSC at UoL, and also one of the interviewers for today. And as an interviewer, I would like to thank everyone for joining us and to introduce our speaker, Vilmos. So he is Microsoft's MVP member of Mensa, and also has 20 years of industry experience. And so I wouldn't waste much time, as he will better tell us about his work and experience. So Vilmos, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about your work and what it consists of?
Hi all, and welcome you all to the Let's Talk Tech discussion. And as today's guest speaker, I would like to just go through a little bit of introduction in a slide deck, and then we will talk about what I do on a high level. And then finally, we will just go into details of the GDSC interview. And then you can also fire your questions, and I will try to answer them to my best knowledge. So let me just quickly begin the screen share. Let me know if you can see the screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Yes, we can see it.
Great, let's just begin. So the program, a quick introduction. I will talk about what business applications and enterprise resource planning systems are. Then we will conduct the interview with the GDSC members at the University of London BSc program. And then finally, we'll have a Q&A session for anything you guys want to ask that we forgot to cover. And let's begin. So, like already mentioned, I am Vilmos Kintera. I am working as head of AX at JJ Food Service in a remote position. The company is based in the United Kingdom, but after 3 years of working for them, I've moved back to my original country, which is Hungary. So I reside in Budapest now. And you can follow my Twitter handle and the websites that I'm using for technical blogging and vlogging and sharing where I'm speaking and all the various technical engagement that I have. So a little bit of introduction. My background is IT, and I've been studying World Banking Informatics in high school. So I wanted to specialize in this area. I also started the undergraduate degree programs in Hungary, but I was not too satisfied 20 years ago with the quality of education they had at the time. So they wanted to teach us Turbo Pascal and very outdated languages and concepts that was not really academically in line with what I was looking for. So I was mostly self-taught about various programming languages, concepts, operating systems, and I pretty much built up my IT background myself. After that, I began to work as a dropout from university straight away after my first year, and I landed a job in Hungary, which was a subsidiary of an Austrian company. And as I was starting to learn what ERP systems are and building up my career, I actually managed to live in a host of countries and continents. So a quick but not fully exhaustive list is Hungary, Austria, Iceland, Australia, Sweden, United States of America, United Kingdom. So I spent between 1 year to 5 years in most of the places here. And the major companies I've been engaged with is Columbus IT Global, Sable Systems, Onnata, Sapa Hydro Aluminium, and JJ Food Service. So this is my quick overview of the journey in the IT industry. As you can see, I was traveling quite a bit, and I like to highlight that one of the benefits of working in the ERP business is that you are not actually tied to your place where you work and live, but it gives you a lot of opportunities to travel internationally. Customers are in many cases not just represent themselves in a single country, but they are spread across multiple countries. So I talk about that a little bit later. For now, I think this should be the quick introduction section, and let's move on to show what are the business applications. So what are business applications? We call them ERP, which stands for Enterprise Resource Planning, and these are integrated systems, and these systems are used to manage business operations and exchange information which should be available real time. If you go to a grocery store and take a product off a shelf, you put it on your basket, you go to the cashier, and the cashier reads the barcode on the item, and then you finally pay. This actually covers, for example, the point of sale systems, which is part of business operations. Essentially, any exchange of information, trade, manufacturing, these are all covered under the ERP systems. So what we refer as business applications is essentially how the global world and trade and manufacturing is working. Everything from the grocery store to what happens in mining operations, pharmaceuticals, and so on. And these are built on three cornerstones. First of all, we have, for now, the human decision makers. Maybe in the future it will change as we move towards the artificial intelligence and that's developing. But for now, human decisions makers are the ones who drive the operations, how a business runs. In a business, we've got internal and external information that we exchange, be it a product, the price of a product, the basket that we are selling, the total price for that, the VAT components, whatsoever. And obviously, to run these operations, we need hardware and software. So an ERP system integrated software solution is built around on these three main components. So the advantage of an ERP system is that a work is not interrupted. Everything is just in time. Information is immediately available. Once we complete one piece of the operation or the work, it moves on to the next person and the next person and the next person in the whole supply chain. It is accessible, reportable for the managers. Internal and external communication is immediately realized. So ERP systems is all about making things available at the time when they are needed. Yes? These systems support the business operations that we refer as vertical solutions. So there are many specializations in the ERP world. So there are heavy industry and manufacturing type of companies such as Caterpillar, for example. You've got retail and wholesales. The retail side is, for example, a clothes store or how shops in a mall are operating. Wholesales is more about distributing goods at large for the retailers. We've got the finance and banking sectors, the project, public sector, pharmaceuticals, and 1,000 other vertical solutions, which I didn't care to list. But what I want to highlight is that many of us studying here at University of London have different backgrounds. So some are coming, I don't know, from the medical industry. They are nurses, doctors. Some of us are working in sales and retail. So we've got a lot of different backgrounds. And as a world class, we are studying IT. And what I want to highlight is that it doesn't matter what background you have, with the additional knowledge that we learn at University of London in IT, and then later on your interests, these are all applicable knowledge to business applications. So you don't have to necessarily become a programmer. You don't have to necessarily become a technical consultant, system administrator. There is always some usable knowledge that you can apply in this sector, okay? Now, UoL is not really teaching us about micro and macroeconomics, how businesses operate, but we don't have to know that knowledge, because as part of your everyday life, you already have that information. You already see how sales systems operate, how you can use your credit card for an online purchase. So this is common knowledge. It's just you're not aware of it, that you have this knowledge. But when you start working for ERP systems with business applications, you will quickly realize how it all fits together like a puzzle, and you can start applying your acquired IT knowledge in this specific IT area. Yeah. So we distinguish two kind of ERP systems right now. One is the on-premises, which is the old style. I have my own hardware, my servers. I'm running the system on site or in a data center. And the new terminology is the new buzzword, which is cloud. It's a big gray area. We don't really know what is behind. And the product that I'm working with is the Microsoft's product. It's essentially a competitor of Oracle, JD Edwards, i4 Sun Systems, all the big ERP solutions. And Microsoft version is called Microsoft Dynamics, where AX is the on-premises version, and Dynamics 365 is the Azure cloud-based solution. I added some old screenshots for reference how their AX application and the point of sale system at a cashier looks like for reference. Later on, as part of the demo, I will show the new Canvas application-based cloud solution. So I have brought a video about showing how Microsoft imagines their business application solution. I will try to play it. I hope the audio comes through. So let's give it a try.
We live in a time of disruptive change, where agility and innovation are the hallmarks of a resilient business.
Did you guys hear the audio clearly?
Yeah, Vilmos, sorry to interrupt you. I heard the audio for first half of the video, and then I haven't heard it anymore. And I see that some people also say that they couldn't hear. So I think the best solution is like just share the link when everything is finished, so that people
Sure.
can watch it in their own time.
I'm going to share the presentation so you guys can watch this later on. But essentially what they showed here is that they are trying to apply a lot of new technologies in this business. So they are also actually trying to incorporate all the new solutions which are coming. So it's not just about selling the goods, buying the goods, manufacturing the goods, but they're actually using the new technologies which are changing right now. So Microsoft is trying to be disruptive about it. So for example, that's why they chucked $1 billion, for example, in the OpenAI company. And it's not was just for testing what intelligent signal processing is and natural language processing is and investing about AI and ML, but they wanted to get out something of that. And that was, for example, the Codex model in OpenAI. And the first application that they actually released openly was for their Microsoft Dynamics package. So they created a Copilot, which can create Power Apps application for your mobile devices. It can read news for you, gather the news information together. So you can see, for example, if there's a fire in Australia and the crops are going to be affected by that. And the AI can actually collect and hunt this news information for you, highlight it for the procuring team who's buying these fruits for your wholesale company. And the AI can recommend actions that these are the affected companies in that specific area of the continent who is affected by floods and fire and natural catastrophes. And the AI is actually preparing an email for you to reach out to these vendors and ask about their potential stock capacities to buy the goods from them. They are also using now the HoloLens and the augmented reality. So, for example, they were showing an aircraft and showing an engine in General Motors, and they have got their augmented reality goggles on. And when they look at the airplane, they look at the engine, the application is highlighting for them the various components on that plane or engine, and that information is being fed from your ERP system in the backend. So all the manuals, the steps that you need to do for the manufacturing process, where does that engine go, where does that piece of piston go, and this is all being fed real time from ERP data. So all these exciting new technologies that even University of London is offering modules for are being incorporated into this sector of IT. So it doesn't matter where you want to specialize later on, it's all applicable knowledge for these large enterprises that you can use. So it is very exciting how Microsoft is onboarding all these technologies and trying to be really innovative. I think this is really pointing forward and going to be a hard pill to swallow for the other competitors. If you want to specialize in SAP and get a little bit more money compared to what you can get as a Microsoft business applications expert, you can do that. But the innovation is much faster, I believe, in our corner. So I'm vouching for the blue team. Yeah? A little bit about where I work. So JJ Food Service Limited is a wholesale and B2B, B2C company in the United Kingdom. They have got 11 warehouses as of now, and they are distributing products for the corner chippy shops, the fish and chip shops, the kebab shops, to regular kind of restaurants, to government institutions like schools, for example, for their mensas. And they're also sending all these ingredients for the Michelin star restaurants and the hotels. So what they call them is the caterer of the caterers, and I'm responsible for running their IT operations as head of AX, meaning I run the show for the ERP system there. They have been using Dynamics AX through all the major versions, 3.0, 4.0, 2009, 2012, R3, and now the cloud-based version for 15 years. They've accumulated a really huge order history and transactional history. So the database behind is about 2 terabytes in size, running on Microsoft CQL server, which is huge. Just a regular company is typically around 100, 150 GB. So compared to 2 terabytes, you can imagine it's a really hard amount of data to handle. We've got 60,000 customers across the United Kingdom, and we use about 100 plus delivery vehicles to get these goods onto the various restaurants and institutions. I got a small video about JJ Food Service to show you what we do there. And I hope the audio goes through this time better. If not, then you will be able to see it later on in the shared slides.
At JJ Foods, we know that running a successful restaurant is a demanding job, and our customers are busy people. Which is why we go to great lengths to make it easy for them to deal with us. We can predict what they need to order, and we personalize every customer's experience. Not just with recommendations of products they have ordered before, but with new things selected specially to suit their menus. With 60,000 customers, 10 years of order histories, and some complex mathematics, we can be surprisingly helpful. We know that restaurateurs spend little time behind the desk, so we have responded with a mobile app that has the same predictive features. You can place your order literally in seconds and get straight back to what you're doing. Behind the scenes, we have created a different app to help our drivers. With just a mobile phone, they know what to deliver, when, and where. It's all automated. Many of our products are temperature controlled, so we have added Bluetooth sensors to our trucks. And by the driver's phone, we receive real-time data for our whole fleet. The customers don't see this. They just know that their orders arrive fresh every time. Our drivers print invoices after the customer has signed for their goods. So we have eliminated invoicing errors and subsequent credit notes. This saves a lot of time for our customers and for us. We could not do any of this without Microsoft Dynamics AX at the heart of our business and Microsoft Azure in the cloud. Together, we are reshaping the way food distribution works, enabling our customers to have more time to delight their customers.
Okay, could you hear it?
Yes, we could hear it this time. Audio was
Awesome.
great.
Yeah, so
So,
whatever you did,
as you
keep
can
it
see-
that way.
Great. So as you can see, JJ Food Service is delivering the goods for these restaurants, but when British decided that they would like to leave the European Union, that has proved to be a really big challenge. And a lot of companies and a lot of industries were actually losing money, losing customers, and they had to pay a lot of extra import fees, and it was proving to be a really big challenge. And companies who were not able to innovate and rely on their IT departments to bring in some new ideas and technologies, they actually managed to lose a large portion of their business. So we're talking about 20% to up to 100% and closing down businesses because of Brexit. And that's why I was a little bit lucky to be on board with JJ Food Service, because it's a family-run business, but they are really huge, and they rely on their IT team. That means the gentleman who was talking, my boss, Chief of Operations, Mushtaq Ahmed, he actually allows IT team to drive the innovation. That means you've seen we introduced invoice printing for the customers on site. So the delivery guys goes into their truck. The truck has been loaded last night with all the goods that they're supposed to deliver. They get a list of paper now, which has been replaced by a mobile device about the orders that he's supposed to deliver. So one driver has between 20 to 40 drops of restaurants where he has to deliver all these goods. Sits in the truck, starts at address number 1, drop the goods, address number 2, move on. And that's how his day goes by. Now, we are selling food items which are in 3 temperature zones: ambient temperature, chilled, and frozen goods. And imagine that Joe is supposed to take out frozen chicken and fish from the freezer of the truck. He leaves the door open. And now if he leaves the door open for 20 customers, customer 21 might not get frozen chicken, but ambient temperature chicken, which is almost half spoiled. And we have been getting a lot of complaints and returns from these customers that the quality of foods that we are delivering are not adequate. So we had to come up with solutions to fix these kind of problems. So we found, for example, a little bit of coin-like IoT device. They actually used those in China. They were putting all these IoT devices on people as a heart rate monitor and temperature monitor. It was Bluetooth driven. It was using its own battery, which can run for 3 years or so. And it was transmitting the patient's heart rate and temperature to a central server, and that's how they could monitor what is going on with the patients. And we thought this is really ingenious technology. How can we bring this in to have a better quality of service at JJ? And we got these coins, we installed this in the trucks, wrote a little bit of .NET code for the mobile applications to gather the information of the temperature ranges. And now if Joe forgot to shut the freezer door during his deliveries, the IoT sensor was sending the temperature information to our servers running the ERP application in the backend. And we've got Power BI reports running on the screen of the operator, seeing that, okay, Joe's truck's temperature of the freezer is going up. They could just press a single button, call up Joe. Hey, Joe, you forgot to close the freezer door, shut it, or we're going to deduct the damage from your wage. And Joe was really quick about going back to the truck and immediately shutting the freezer door. We improved the quality of service by small innovations like that. So letting the companies being driven by IT staff and introducing new technologies is actually going to generate business value in the other side. So you as an individual developer can make really big contributions and save millions of dollars or pounds for these companies if you've got a really smart idea in your head. So if you decide to go with a company you want to work for in the business sector, I encourage you guys to try to find a company who allows the IT department to be a little bit of innovative, bringing new technologies, because they are more competitive in terms of success. So let's try to find a company where you don't have a boss who knows what's the best, and the boss says, it's not A, but it's B, and I don't care about what you say because I know that B is going to be correct. He might not necessarily be right about that. So find a company which supports IT innovation. Yeah. Now, the key aspects about running a business 24/7, 365. As you can imagine, we've got a really fast-moving inventory in our warehouses. It means, I think on a weekly basis, we sell 60,000 tons of chicken, just to give you a rough idea about how that is. So what we call these are short shelf life products. And if the IT operation would go down for 2 days, that means majority of the goods that we have in the warehouses are spoiled, and we have to write it down. And that's hundreds of millions of pounds and dollars that we're talking about. So if IT operation is disrupted for not more than 2 days, that means the company can close down and everybody is let go. And that's a really big responsibility for a company like that, which is operating for 24/7, 365. So for that, you need a high availability IT infrastructure. It means you've got disaster recovery practices in place. So if a server blows, there's another server to replace its roles. If that blows, there's a plan C and the plan D. So it is the responsibility of an IT team, our responsibility to keep a company like that operational. For that, we obviously need the IT support and the help desk team to support the humans working in that company for the operations. You've got the ERP technical developers and functional consultants. So I qualify as that, technical developer. You've got the .NET and the web development team for the e-commerce portal, the mobile applications that we are using. We've got monitoring, version control of code, and business operations optimization teams in place. So these are essentially the technical resources and the main goals that we want to reach. So in case you decide to go with this business, work for ERP systems, these are the typical areas that you can get a job for. Yeah. And just 2 more minutes, and I'm going to finish my introduction deck, and we can go to the interview part. I just wanted to show you guys that previously we have been using telesales agents to receive all the calls that, hey, what do you want to buy? They were getting a call sheet printed and call all the restaurants in the early morning, like, what do you want to buy from us? What do you need to run your operations? Later on, when they become large, they had on-site sales assistants who were going out with an iPad and they could punch in the orders directly into the ERP system at the restaurants. And we obviously serve customers at the warehouses. But with all this new connected technology and the cloud, decided that it is time to replace old-fashioned way of sales with something new. And the company has developed an e-commerce portal. Now, this is a very cool thing that we have here. It's using Google Polymer, which means the entire site is downloaded just once. And depending on how you parameterize up the website to render, it's showing different pages, different goods, a list of products, the nutrient information for the product, video, support information, whatever you need. And the website is all operating just from your local cache to render everything inside. And the actual information to show this comes just in time from the ERP portal through RESTful API calls. You've got the same implemented for a mobile device. So you can see that we try to innovate really well by having the customer come in to the portal, they sign on, and we know that the customer has been buying from us fish, for example, nori sheets and rice, so we can use machine learning algorithms to classify these customers. This classification would tell that, okay, this is an Asian style restaurant, and we know what did they purchase in the past. So when they sign into our e-commerce portal or the mobile application, the machine learning algorithm already knows that, okay, it's a corner chippy shop, for example. They use a lot of oil to make the fries and the fish, and they didn't buy oil for the last 10 days, but they usually buy it every 2 weeks. So the machine learning algorithm sees this, and on the first spot, it's going to recommend the oil to be purchased from us for these customers. And this is all AI and machine learning in the background. We actually developed this logic together with Microsoft in-house. And later on, they liked this so much that these upsell and frequently bought together features have been added to the core Dynamics product. But JJ Food was the one who innovated this like 4 or 5 years ago or so. So try to adopt the new technologies before it is mainstream. Do your own homework, research these things, because by being able to sell these goods for these customers within 1 minute compared to the competitor's website where it takes 4 to 5 minutes to click through the sales basket, the customers will churn on their end and will come to JJ Food because we can serve them faster. And this is all supported by smart usage of technology. So I encourage everyone to pay attention to all these courses that we have at UoL, because everything is valuable. You just have to be smart about how to use them. So you guys can see that we are using Power BI dashboards to calculate prices, what are our main products that we sell. These are interactive click-through reports, which is another big part of IT, that is the data science and data analytics. And this is also a very interesting area where we can make business decisions based on that. So for example, we knew that the quality of fish was not the best that they were selling at this various fish and chips shop. And we have seen that the fish section was really huge in our reports in terms of sales and price. So JJ decided to purchase a fishing industry pretty much, and we've got our own boats now trying to get the quality fish to improve what people are eating at the restaurants, because it's our own common goal. And it all stems from creative use of data, like in which section is important, where we can improve the quality of our products, but again, the health of the people as well. So business applications is a very, very wide area that we can work with. And I just wanted this to come through for all of you. And pretty much this is what I wanted to share for now. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we can get to the interview piece. So
yeah, thank you very much for Vilmos. It was very informative. I'm sure we'll learn a lot about ERP systems, business applications, and how they help people to run businesses smoothly. So before starting the interview, I want to remind all of our attendees that in the right hand in the menu, besides the general chat, you also have a Q&A section. So if you have any question besides the one Cindy and Nicola are gonna make Vilmos, you can put it in the chat, and I make sure to forward it to Vilmos at the end of the interview.
Okay, so
great.
yeah, so let's move to questions. So yeah, Vilmos was really detailed in his presentation, but we still have some questions from point of view from people who have no experience with ERP systems. And the way we envisioned these questions to go is like in kind of natural order, like from interview to landing a job and so on. So Vilmos, if I understand correctly, you're a team lead, and with as somebody who has many years of experience, you're on the other side of the interview process. So can you tell us like what is your how to say, so maybe like a role in a recruitment process? So what exactly do you do?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I'm responsible for the ERP application. We've got a very small in-house team. So typically how it looks like is there are implementation partners who are delivering these solutions and doing these ERP systems for the customers. You've got the customers who are using these systems, and then you've got the solution vendors who are building the industry verticals like the pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, additional solutions. So I'm sitting in the middle right now. So I'm on a customer side, and we don't deal with partners because the company decided that they will build an in-house team. So we've got infrastructure team, help desk and support, .NET developers, web developers, and ERP engineers. And I'm responsible for this fifth team. So I got consultants and software engineers in my team. And recruitment works in a way that usually the first stage is the HR. So, for example, they want to post a job that I need a software engineer who has 3 to 5 years experience for a media role. I will contact HR about it, hand over what are the job requirements for them, and then they will try to engage people outside of the organization. Typically now that happens through LinkedIn. So recruiters have really moved on there. And I encourage all of you that you should create a profile on LinkedIn, even if you are just studying or you've got past experience from different industries, put it there and maybe mention what aspects of your job are relevant for IT, because we are studying here because we want to get into an IT job, I assume. So once you pass the HR stage, they see that, yes, you meet the criteria. There is usually a technical interview. That's when my role comes in, and I post various kind of questions for the prospect who wants to come to our company. And once they pass the technical interview stage, then they will usually talk to myself and the boss about salary and expectations and how many holidays you want to have and these kinds of discussions before a final contract is offered for them on the job. So this is my role on a high level.
That's very interesting, Vilmos. Other than the 3 to 5 years of experience that you mentioned, are there any key personal qualities or technical abilities that you really look for in a prospect during the recruitment process?
Definitely. So if I'm looking, for example, at people who just finished university, what I'm looking for is what knowledge did they get from the university, as shooting some generic questions about object-oriented programming and languages. What languages are they familiar with? To what depth? Maybe try to shoot a more technical question there. For example, if they learned about databases, I would ask about performance. How do you ensure that your query is running fast? Because if it's running slow, it's no use for our customers. It runs for 4 minutes to create your sales basket. They are going to go away because you can do it in 1 minute. And for that, the database is a very large component. So I try to focus on the technical areas which are key for being successful in the business applications area. Other qualities are about, for example, using version control. So not that many universities actually encourage people to do that. So when I'm also helping out on Slack, for example, for UoL, the first thing that I recommend for everyone is familiarize yourself with Git, GitHub, various source repositories, check in your code. And if you make a change, immediately check that in, because that's how you get prepared for an actual job. Other qualities are language and how the user communicates. So I try to tell them that you want to talk to your boss that something went south and you would need more time to finish your development. And please word an email how it would look like to explain what has happened, how much time you need to finish a solution, and just have a look at how they communicate towards outside of the IT department, if you get what I mean. So interpersonal skills is important like that. How do you communicate? Is it assertive? Is it clear? Are you using words which are not too technical for regular people to understand? So just personal qualities. Yeah. I think these are the main areas. Yes.
Yeah,
There's a relevant
that's-
question in there's
Yeah,
a question
sure.
in the chat very related to this, and Leonardo Cunha asks, what skills, hard and soft, do you believe were crucial for you to enter and progress in the IT branch of the business applications field?
Okay, landing my first job, that's always usually what people ask, how did you earn your first million? So landing my first job. I was just fresh out of a uni as a dropout because I didn't like the quality of teach that they have there. And I went for a company which just started. So you can say it was a startup, but startup means you usually have an angel and they have money. Well, this company didn't have money. And they just wanted to open a subsidiary in Hungary, which was an Austrian company, Columbus IT at the time. And they had several thousands of IT employees all over the world, just not in the Eastern Bloc of Europe at the time. So the single person working in the company and the Austrian boss came for the interview. They did ask some technical questions, and they also measured how well do I speak English. So I had to have a strong foundation of being able to represent myself in an international scene. So knowing some languages in German, in English, outside of my Hungarian native speaking was very important. And the third thing that I asked for was a very low salary at the time, because I thought that if I'm good enough, they're going to bump up my salary anyway. So if they're going to call in 10 people who wants to take the job that I'm also aiming for, maybe if I ask for less money, I can make it up on the long run if they recruit me first. And this is exactly what has happened. So I just went below the market rate at the time as a fresh man recruited for this industry. And after half a year, when my developer experience and confidence and knowing how business operations are running was getting to a really good level, they started racking up my money that I earned because they wanted to keep me at the time. So I can say that if you're a freshman to this area, don't be afraid to not say that I want £5,000 for my first job. I will be fine with just £1,000 to get by, and show that you want to learn. You are here to expand your knowledge, work for the company, and you will be successful. They will choose you. Now, if you're talking more about the Meteor knowledge, that's where the technical skill set comes to play a bigger role. So money is now not an important thing at the time. Yes, of course, for you it is, but for the company, not. They're more interested about what do you know of the product? How confident are you with using the various tools that you need for this? So it's more about technical skill set. And when you get to know the business for 10, 15, 20 years like myself now, it's transitioning more into administrative roles. I believe we have a question later on about asking this, so I will just cover it there. But as you are transitioning more into an administrative role like a team lead or a solution architect, then good communication is what they are looking for. They already know that you're technically sound. They want to see if you can create meaningful solution design documentation, technical design documentation. Are you familiar with project methodologies like Agile or Waterfall? Do you know some internationally recognized project management tools like ETL Foundation? So it will be more about these kind of skills which are on the higher end of IT. Yeah.
Nice. Well, there's talking about technical skills. There's a question by Timos, and which is relevant to this. So, for the recruitment process, would you prioritize someone who is specified in a framework language like .NET or C Sharp, for example, or would it be better to have a more roundabout approach, having worked with Java or Python frameworks, for example?
That's a good question, and I would say it depends on the ERP business you're going for. So SAP has their ABAP and HANA-based languages. Microsoft has its X++ language, which is in-house, and it's really close to how Java and C# is operating. So depending on which big team you're joining for their application, the skill set required is different. But the additional skills that you might learn, like knowing about web services, REST APIs, how a website is constructed, version control, using shell languages like Bash for DOS, PowerShell, or Unix shell coding. These could be all beneficial, and these are skills that you can develop without knowing and being aware of what business applications are. So in my corner, if I'm looking for a Dynamics recruitee and they know .NET C#, that's what I'm looking for. And I would be asking about, do you know what delegates are? How can we create a class? How do we use inheritance? So more of the academic technical side of the questions for the technical interview. And that's how I can decide to see if they are fit for the work or not.
Yeah, so great. So you gave a lot of advice about the interview process. Just one final question about it. So since you have a lot of experience, have you noticed anything that people usually overlook, people who would like to go into your industry, and that they maybe overlook and maybe it can block them or prevent them from having that career or career path? So like, what are common mistakes that young people usually make before choosing that path?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting question because for being able to work with business applications, it's not just IT skills that you need. So usually there's a terminology in our industry called code monkeys, and typical software houses who are just making one application, then they move on to the next and create another application. They are code monkeys. So they get the specification, they program what is required. They don't have to understand the whole big picture. And business application is not like that. So in my first half a year, what they did is I didn't write a single line of code. They sent me out to a customer implementation project, and I had to sit down with the various department leads in finance, in the warehouse management, the logistics, and learn just what they are doing on their job. I had to have a sound understanding about business processes. And once I had put everything in place in my head, like, okay, items are used in the warehouse management and inventory module, financial accountants and purchase ledger people are doing everything in the general ledger module, which is about chart of accounts and journalizing and whatsoever. I had a good concept about how a business runs, okay? And once you know how a business runs, the code behind actually ties in. So the business application is modularized. I'm going to show that in the demo section later on. So we've got classes which are starting with the name invent, classes which start with the name ledger, and I would know that what they are doing, how to create a journal, where is it visible in the application, and what do the actual people do with that part of the app. So it's not enough to be just a coder, but you have to have an understanding about the business side, a little bit of economics, a little bit about bookkeeping, to be able to be efficient in this job. And I think this is an advantage of going for this industry, because it's not just dry coding, but you get to face different kind of challenges of life and companies in general that you need to solve. So work never gets boring in our corner of industry. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that insight. So that was generally the topic about the interview stage for getting the job. So say you actually landed the job initially, how was it for you to integrate yourself in terms of technical skills you had at that time?
Yeah, it's usually a process to build up this knowledge. Juniors typically don't get to change low-level classes immediately, because they can easily break an application. We release bad code to production and the system is down. And if you don't fix it, you're in big trouble. So they only allow juniors to do small pieces. For example, get to understand the data in the database first. So you will be writing reports, something that you can print out and analyze. We will be getting read-only access to small parts of the system, because they will not trust you with the entire database to be sysadmin, to delete a table or the entire database by accident, by not knowing what you are doing. So they try to build up this knowledge gradually by giving small chunks and small tasks for people who join the industry. And then you will start to get yourself familiarized with the processes, like how do we release code to production? How do you apply a hotfix? How do we check in the code changes? What stages does that go through before it can actually land in the production repository? Who is the gatekeeper who's doing the code reviews? If they find a bug there or a suboptimal solution and they throw it back, what you need to do. So you gradually start learning all these things that the university doesn't teach you. It usually takes around 2 to 3 years while you're being considered to be a junior. And once you get a good foundation about these tools and processes, that's when you can move into mid-year role. That's where you will start learning more about the business processes, the low-level codes. You can change more in the system and gain some confidence. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So since you have already talked a lot about technologies that you use in your work, so can you please tell us about like what is your approach to learning new technologies, or even better, like what was your approach when you started that career, and maybe like the evolution like of your approaches, and what is your approach now when it comes to learning new technologies and skills that you need to have to tackle with your day-to-day job?
Yeah, so first, when you're not really confident in what you are doing, your best bet is going to be Google and Bing, because search engines can dig out a lot of useful information for you. So you have to learn how to Google right. I mean, there's no way around that. And that's why I'm also encouraging in Slack that people should learn to look for the information. If you don't know that, you're not going to succeed, because people working for the company next to you, they are busy. You can't just rely on your mentor or whoever is nearby to ask the questions, because then they would not be able to get invoiceable hours in. So juniors get some help, they get some guidance, but they have to know how to search. So this is one of the most important basic skill that you can acquire yourself. And once you have that, you will start onboarding technology by reading documentation. So, for example, in UoL ITP1, your best bet is going to be p5js.org to read the documentation, what the programming language can do for you. So that's how you will start learning the new functionalities, the new technologies which are there, the various frameworks that you can call. And then once you are more efficient in knowing the programming language itself, you will start adding things on the top like an onion. And those things are, how do I call APIs, RESTful API, OAuth tokens, how do I use the Postman software to call a web URL? And you will essentially just start to explore these tools. What can it do for you? If you get stuck, you will go online, watch some YouTube videos about that. So I will look up how do I call a WSDL URL using Postman and OAuth 2.0, and you will find the video there. They will explain clearly what you need to do. Sometimes there are bad quality videos, there are good quality videos. You have to always check various sources to decide who is an authentic knowledge in that area and who is just a clown, to put it mildly. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds. Timos asked a question very related to this, and so about researching. What do you think about using ChatGPT right now instead of Googling?
My take on it, I do not, because it's making a lot of mistakes. So these AIs are not able to think at the moment, and it cannot be considered to be an authentic source of information. So to ask these questions and involve AI is a bad practice. You should more be reliant on authentic sources like Stack Exchange. Stack Exchange is a really good source of information because people who are actually expert in the field can rank up and down the answers. So if you want a good answer, usually it's ranked up high on Stack Exchange, and you can consider that to be an authentic source of information. There is no control above what ChatGPT tells you. So it can be a complete bollocks that it's recommending. Yeah. So as an IT expert, I don't use it at all. I don't rely on it. I don't write any codes with it because I know that I can write performant code and good quality code myself. Maybe after 2 or 3 new versions, and when it will be more like a general AI that can think for itself, I would consider it to be an authentic source of information and use it more. Until that, it will be just a fancy copilot to fast type code, for example, in Visual Studio for myself.
All right, great. Thank you for sharing. So that is regarding skills and how to develop yourself in the work field. Looking at the bigger picture, do you have any favorite project that you've worked on in your daily work, or either a project that you preferred working on relative to the other ones?
Yeah, it's like when you're on an implementation project, it usually involves a lot of parties. So, for example, I was working for Sapa Aluminium, and that's a very large company. They have 20 to 30,000 employees globally. And the ERP system that we went live with initially had, I think, 600 concurrent users in Sweden. And then we had a big bang go live in America. So I moved there to Pittsburgh. And simultaneously on 3 sites, we wanted to go live with this ERP template that we developed in Sweden. So I was constantly flying out to Pittsburgh financial headquarters, to Florida, St. Augustine, where they had their manufacturing plant, and Phoenix, Arizona, and Monette, Missouri, various parts of the US where they had manufacturing plants. And this was a so-called Big Bang go live, so not just going live with one side, but 3 at the same time, and letting 3,000 concurrent users on your system is going to stretch it out. So we had to be very conscious about performance. So how many servers do we need to serve these users? How challenging is it going to be on the CQL server? What do we consider to be a slow running query? How can we report on that? I wrote a code, for example, which was just checking what query is running for more than 5 seconds that we run against the SQL instance on the database. I was getting a nice report on it daily as we started to use the system. And then I could give it out to the developer saying, hey, this is running slow. Please have a look at the query because it's suboptimal and do something about it. I don't know, new index, have less fields in the query, maybe split it out to multiple tables. So this was a very interesting project for me because it was a high pressure but high reward kind of go live. Yeah.
Yeah, so speaking of favorite project and high pressure and responsibility, I wanted to ask you some question that is a little bit more relaxed. So do you by any chance have like an opportunity to kind of like freedom to choose any projects that you want. And if you do that, if you do have that freedom, how do you choose those projects? How do you determine which one you will do?
Yeah, this is more for a special kind of staff in the IT industry for business applications, and they are called contractors. So once you've racked up a couple of years of experience, you can decide that you don't want to work for a specific customer or partner, but you want to travel around the world and do half a year to 1 year contracts. So it gives you a really good opportunity to just fly and see the world, do various projects, and being a contractor is a good way to do that. That's when you're already familiar with the industry, the tools that you use, and you can fit into any kind of team all across the world really fast. And pretty much contractors can do that. They sign to do the implementation in half a year to 2 years, depending on how long it takes to get the system up and running. And then you can move on. So this gives you, I think, the best opportunity to see various kind of projects and select the ones that you like. So typically people specialize in this area. So if you like the number crunching and you're confident with your bookkeeping, chart of accounts, you become a financial kind of developer. And then you learn that side of the business. Or if you like, for example, more the manufacturing process, how we deliver the goods. So essentially what we call supply chain management. You specialize in that one. And then there's the other guys who do integrations, and they like how applications and IoT talk to each other. That's the more techie kind of developer you can become. So there are various kind of projects that you can prefer to choose. And if you get bored of one area, it's very easy to just move another kind of area to spice up the things. So you would get less bored and get more creativity and reward out of what you do. And that helps with the burnout. Yeah.
All right, thank you for sharing about how one can navigate themselves when they've actually landed the job. So if anyone in the audience has a question regarding this specific topic about landing the job and how to navigate yourself, please leave your questions in the chat box and we will get to them towards the end of the event in the Q&A section. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, so shall we move to the next question? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So can you tell us how many hours a week you spend coding and how many hours maybe you spend like doing all other tasks? So what is the ratio between those two, and maybe how that ratio changes as you progress through your career?
So building up from being a junior, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So initially you have to spend, I would say, majority of your time to familiarize yourself with the solution and how you can use the tools that you have. So for us, it was at the time the Microsoft Team Foundation server for version control, Microsoft SQL Server for the database side, and then you had to start building up this knowledge of the application and the business processes itself. Once you got that, then you would move more into learning the various kind of interpersonal things, like how do I read a technical document, how do I write a test script, what should the test script should contain to cover the requirements, how do I handle ticketing. So you would hear the word Jira a lot, which is a generic ticketing system. I had to learn about SharePoint, which can also be used for document management and ticketing. And you will start racking up all these additional software knowledge that you need in order to be able to just get by your day. And the goal is to have as many billable hours as you can. So that effectively means writing documentation, reading documentation, creating code, and releasing that to test and production systems. And that's the media role. And once you move on to the more senior positions, it would be more people management. So then I would be looking at the ticketing system, what is open, what do we have to deliver by what deadline, how many hours have been estimated for coding that solution, testing the solution, Why is it stuck with the technical consultant yet and hasn't been fully tested? If it's tested but there's a bug, then assign it back to the developer. So you would be doing more Excel and ticketing system management at the time. And then you would be also doing more communication with various departments and customers externally to get things moving forward. Yeah. I would say that initially 80% of your time is reading documentation and learning. 20% is actual coding as a junior to make the reports, to make some data requests from the database. And that slowly transitions to maybe 50% billable hours, 50% administration of reading emails, processing documents, and learning. And that's a media role. And once you get to a decision maker position, for example, if you're a team lead, I would say maybe 1/3 of your time is coding, 70% is communication and management. I try to not do that much because we've got a small team, so I'm actually doing coding myself. So I'm around 50% management, 50% coding as well. We've got a daily Scrum meeting going for 35, 40 minutes every day. Most of us are working remotely, so we've got the cameras on. We talk about what we did yesterday, what we plan to do today. If you've got any difficulties or interesting things to share, like tips and tricks, or hey, I read this documentation and it was really good, or that YouTube video was very valuable to my knowledge, I would share that on the Scrum meeting as well. So try to entertain each other, help each other, and not try to use our elbows that, hey, I want to be the first and you guys should not be here. I want your salary as well. If you're that kind of guy, it doesn't work, okay? So you have to cooperate, help the others, and you never know when they're going to help you out. If you have to run to the doctors or something happens with your family, then they will step in for you, yeah? So that's an interesting aspect, not strictly tied to your question, but keep that in mind. Yeah.
All right, thank you. So as someone from more of the technical side of working on a project, how do you approach discussing technical aspects of a project to non-technical staff or shareholders of the project as well?
Yeah, this is the part that I'm really bad with. I'm using some kind of aristocratic English, and some people find that offending. I'm very direct and straight. I try to be an efficient communicator and leave the small talk out. And some people find that really hard. There has been a recent discussion about that. We have all seen it by disagreeing with people. I try to be more like a professional and business kind of communicator in my line of work. I find that to be efficient. And when I'm talking to non-IT personnel, I will try to simplify what I want to say. So I don't use the technical terminology because they will not understand. Initially, I did, and I realized that that was not an efficient way of communicating. So I try to be simple as veg, as you can say.
Yeah, great. So you already talked about having certain freedom in choosing your projects, and that helps you to navigate your stress. But besides that freedom that is given as part of your job, so do you have like any personal strategies or ideas how you deal with stress besides that part of choosing clients and choosing like which projects you want to work on?
Yeah, I resort to violence. And that means I'm actually doing Kung Fu, and I got a wooden dummy behind me. So if I get really stressed, I just stand there and punch the wood a little bit to relieve stress. So that's on the joke side, obviously. Yes, I do Kung Fu and some meditation and relaxation. That really helps. But you also have to find a good work-life balance with your family, being outside a little bit. I walk the dog. So I try to switch out and phase off from just doing work. That's not always happening because in our line of business, we actually spend a lot of hours with our work. So during the day, you develop your code, and the users are actually in the system throughout the business hours. And when you want to release that code to production, you actually have to wait until the users are out of the system, close of business. That's where you can start the maintenance. There are also automatic processes running, batch jobs in the backend. You have to wait for that, for your database backup to finish and cloning and whatsoever. So there's a very narrow window when you can actually carry out these maintenance processes. And that means our kind of developers are working also 24/7 pretty much, you could say. So you have to find your work-life balance that works for you and for the company as well. So during the day, I'm doing the coding. Outside of business hours, I do the maintenance. Or if we have to install a larger patch or something, we might have to work even on the weekend or during a public holiday. But for that, we are getting financially compensated plentiful, I would say. So you have to love your job, and your job will be your life. Yes?
That's very great to hear, Vilmos. On the topic of work-life balance, how do you feel about the work ethic within your area of work? I know you briefly mentioned that just now, but could you go deep into details about it, about what it's like, the environment, the people, how you distribute certain tasks, and just the entirety of it all?
Yeah, so work ethics, like I said, find a company that embraces IT and not just tells them what to do, and you get to see a lot of red tapes. And that has a benefit for certain types of people, but generally developers like not to be instructed and face red tapes, just to be able to be creative and successful and deliver your work. So in my team, I try to be less pushy about what you need to deliver. If you need more time to finish the job better, I'm not going to pressure you. You have more time, but deliver a good quality solution. So let's not have bugs in it. Let's not break the production system. If you're working for a partner, that can be stressful because the customer usually has a fixed allocated budget of money that they can spend on the job that you do, and they will set the deadlines by which time it should be finished. And if for any reason there's a delay with that, or you found test scenarios which do not work, it generates a lot of stress for you. And then you have to push out the deadlines. You will have more money charged for the customer, which they will not be happy about it. So it will be a bit of a challenge to manage this. So it is pretty much a balancing act to try to be always accountable for your work, try to measure the work that you need to do accurately, how many hours it's going to be delivered, try to deliver it on time, communicate it plenty with managers and the customers so they know where you are. I'm halfway done, I'm fully done, I did my developer testing, it's released to the test system. So you have to communicate what you are doing well. Yeah. We are also very international. So, like I said, for this company, many of us are working internationally. At the previous company, the Sapa Aluminium, which was a large team, we had, I think, more than 100% in the IT department. Just AX developers for the ERP system, there were 24 of them, half of them financial developers, half of them were doing the order to cash in the supply chain and the manufacturing area. I was in charge with the latter team to deliver. And obviously, as a manufacturing company, that was the bigger part that we had to do. And I think I had 15 different country origin members in my team. So there were a lot of Eastern Europeans, obviously, because the company was running in Hungary. So I had some Belarus, some Serbian, Ukrainian, Hungarian developers. We had some people coming over from the United Kingdom. Some US folks were also joining in. So it was a very diverse and culturally rich environment. And usually these type of big corporates try to help with that. So they do team activities outside of work hours. So you go for a bar crawl, you have a bowling, you do some billiard, you go for some activities outside of work to try to help with these cultural differences and get to know each other better personally. So in terms of work ethics, these really help. but it is not your role to take anything about it. It's more like an HR activity or managing activity.
Okay, so just before the next question, just want to remind people that since we're approaching the end of our questions section, so they should leave their questions in Q&A section so that they can get answered in the end. And yeah, so just wanted to ask you, I will try to put like two questions into one. So you talked about work ethics. So is there by any chance like the certain type of people that this job is not for? So that you wouldn't recommend certain kind of people to choose this career?
Anybody can choose this career. So my previous job, I had a guy who was very autistic, but not in a pejorative sense. He was a brilliant guy, and when he understood what the problem is, he delivered the right solution. But in terms of people management, you had to have a certain kind of patience or affinity to communicate well with him. So those are the kind of challenges that you can face as a manager. But on the other hand, what you're asking, if you've got social anxiety, any kind of problems, dyslexia, those typically don't pose a problem if you've got a good understanding of the solution and you can communicate these with the right line manager correctly, I would say. So anyone can be a good ERP consultant or technical resource. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for sharing that information, Vilmos. So this will be the last question for the question set because we are currently at the 1 hour and 20-minute mark. What do you suggest and advise to a student who is just starting this journey?
Yeah, don't just remain in the bounds of what the university is teaching you and listen to your more experienced peers in Slack because they give some really valuable information. I try to be like that as well. So, like I said in the interview, know how to search, use version control, try to acquire these skills which can prepare you for working at a company because they don't teach it well here. And just be observant what the others are recommending in terms of resources. So where they guide you in terms of websites to check, resource materials, source repositories, people who are well known in the industry, like MVPs like myself. We try to do a lot of technical blogging, follow those blogs, and just getting a lot of information for these famous people. So, for example, I'm subscribed to the blog of Bill Gates and various people who are giants in the industry, and they make some really interesting recommendations about reading books, gaining social skills, how they are volunteering in the world, what are the new technologies which are emerging, because they share really valuable insights on how our IT industry is going to be in the future. And it's almost constant learning that we need to do. So it's not like I learn all the programming languages which exist today, because tomorrow there will be a new programming language which you are not prepared for and revolutionizes what we do. Maybe, for example, it will be a mix of an AI and a strictly structured programming language. So you will use your natural language as a spoken words telling the AI what to do, and then it will produce the correct code for you, which you need just to review and approve. So you might never know what is coming down the line. So IT is a very disruptive technology which can change. And even though I'm close to 40 years now, I still need to do a lot of learning. And that is also why I'm studying at the University of London, because I have my very wide set of technical skills, but that's not enough. So I want to learn more about AI, augmented reality, machine learning, data science. Some of them I already do, but I don't think this is adequate enough to call myself an expert in that area. And UoL has a really good curriculum about showing these additional parts of IT which I can apply later on my job to innovate. Yeah.
Well, that sounds great.
Yeah, just wanted one quick sub question. So From everything that you said today, obviously, person should be well-rounded individual for this kind of a job. And you said that we shouldn't be bound by our university and any program, regardless of university. But for viewers who are studying at University of London, and they are maybe in level 6 or approaching level 6, so is there any set of modules that you would recommend for people that they should start with to be like starting point for their journey?
I would say it is personal preference. So if you want to be in the business application side, obviously game development is not going to be helpful for you, but you can make that conscious decision yourself, obviously. So a little bit of AR doesn't hurt, in my opinion, for manufacturing style of companies, but for that you have to know that, okay, I want to be a developer who deals with manufacturing because that's what excites me. So you can make conscious decision based on your interests. Yeah. So obviously game development goes out the window. Natural language processing as well, because you will not be talking to the ERP system yet. Maybe in the future, I don't know. But intelligent signal processing, AI, ML, data science, and just anything which is getting deeper into programming kind of topics, maybe a little bit of IoT. I imagine these could be valuable for the business industry. So I would say about 2/3 of the modules that you can choose are all valid solutions for the business applications area.
Great. Now it's time to move on to the Q&A section of this event. So we have a question from Tilmo.
Before that, I wanted to do the demo part, so show some of the technical tools that I have, and maybe there will be more questions about that. So shall we hold off the Q&A block until that, or is
what
it
if we do the
relevant to
following? Let's make some questions right now, and then after the demo, we have another Q&A section for those questions that rise when. Okay, so we have a question from Timos, and that he did not see any DevOps team in the presentation from in the beginning. So does this fall on the .NET developers team?
If you're talking about the infrastructure management, then it's more about the infrastructure team's responsibility. But also the DevOps side, the development corner, falls on our shoulder in terms of the ERP developer team. So I will tell them what we should monitor, which services should be up and running. If that service drops out, what kind of impact does it have on the availability of the production system? So our application object server should be up, CQL server should be up, remote desktop connections for the users to be able to access the system should be up. We will give them at what time are we doing large I/O operations to make the database backup, to synchronize our code base with the cloud repository. So we tell, as ERP developers, these kind of information for the infrastructure team, and then they make sure that the firewall lets them out. There is enough I/O allocated for that type of communication. They will monitor the services for you. So I would say everybody has their own responsibility that they should know. People who get really experienced, I can actually put on various hats. So I can call myself a DBA, so database administrator. I'm an expert with SQL. I can deploy it. I can create high availability cluster, use always on clustering. We actually at my current company have a 4-way always on cluster with 2 synchronous servers and 2 asynchronous for reporting purposes. I set up our own version control. I got PowerShell scripts written which automatically deploys the code. So I just have to press a button. It picks up the model store changes of the code. It loads into the database to a temporary schema, applies the temporary schema in the database to the production schema, synchronizes the code against the database in case if you have new tables or fields. And it's just a click of a button because I wrote PowerShell script for that, which is doing file copying, compression, decompression, creating .NET calls against the CQL library to create the schema. It's a very complex process. You need to know a lot of things for that. And this falls more in the developer's corner, I would say, more in the senior roles now. It's just to make your life easier and you don't have to type a million lines of maintenance code yourself, but the PowerShell script does that for you and you only do it once. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That sounds very interesting.
You
So,
just have
from
to
your experience,
automate.
oh,
You just have to automate everything as much as you can to save time for different things.
yeah, definitely. So, we have another question from Timos. So,
Yes.
from your experience, how important do you find keeping and sharing a correct documentation of your work?
Correct what? Can you please repeat?
Documentation of your work.
Yeah, it has to be thorough, but sometimes we don't have time for that. I would go with well-commented code, because if another developer has to read it, you don't want them to break your code. So commenting is very important. And there's the industry standard that for every one line of written program code for business functionality, you need 2 lines of documentation. I would say that is a bit excessive, but you have to have a summary of what your functionality or method does on the header. And then for key sections, you have to add 1-line comment saying, this is doing this if statement to go left or right because of this and that. And I would say commenting of code is a very good practice. And now, for example, you can start using AI as a copilot to do some commenting for you. But obviously, because it doesn't understand the business processes, and it will just generate dry mathematical explanation of your if statement, that's less useful. But you have to add the content yourself saying, this is why this code runs to do that specific business operation. For example, for a financial journalization. Yeah. The other kind of documentation is the solution design, testing, and technical documentation. And for that, you've got various frameworks to do that. So, for example, the ETL Foundation gives you these templates that you can fill in, and that's very helpful. So you don't have to construct out of thin air yourself all this documentation, but you can rely on some tools to produce these. I've seen partners who generate this thick of thousands of pages of solution design documents. Nobody's going to read and process that. So in my approach, I try to be more pragmatical, give short description of functionality that we deliver, and just cover my ass saying that this is exactly what the code does and nothing more. So I do the necessary bits just as well. Don't be too excessive in terms of documentation.
Okay, sounds. So Kalyusab has another question. So, did you ever get imposter syndrome? If so, how do you overcome it?
Imposter syndrome in terms of what? For development? Can you please be more specific?
Well, I think question if you have any
Yeah,
okay,
he
in terms of
updated the
development.
development.
I would say no. Not really.
Okay, so Divya Shah has another question. So I am starting this semester. I am interested in full stack development. So would mastering that set me up for success in the industry 3 years from now when this degree ends? What learning path would you recommend?
Full stack development means front end and back end. Back end usually operates in terms of web development with databases, and databases are useful because it's the heart of an ERP solution. I would say the rest is pretty much useless. So I would say, Divya, if you are just starting and you want to do ERP solutions, but you're learning to be a front-end developer, it doesn't align well. We do have a web team. So like I said, the e-commerce portal that we have is heavily reliant on communicating with the ERP solution, but that doesn't require you to learn to become a full-stack developer. What you need to do is learn and use interfaces, APIs, document exchange like EDI, for example, because that's how you can communicate and exchange information with the ERP system. It will be document formats like XML and JSON. And these are independent of the technology that you can use as a full stack developer. These are common technology that pretty much all developers should know, in my opinion. So full stack development is good, but that's more for the web side of it. ERP solutions do use e-commerce portals, but not all of them. It's more about the retail and the supply chain side of it. For manufacturing, you don't really need that kind of knowledge.
Sites. Well, I have another question, but this comes from me. So, at the very beginning of the event, you mentioned that your work has led you work in different places like Austria, the UK, the US. And so, from
Yes.
all those places, where, I mean, did you feel more comfortable, or what was the place where you enjoyed the most working? Because of the company or just because of the country, and maybe getting to know the culture, the landscape? Where do you like the most? Do you like it the most?
It's a good question. Can I mark more than one?
Yeah, sure. You can make a ranking if you want.
You wouldn't believe it, but I would say the number one spot was Iceland. And the reason is people are very close there. So they have got, I think, 360,000 people overall in an entire Hungary-sized island. And if you take any two of them around the same age, I think the largest distance they have is third grade cousin between them. So you could say that this is a whole family in Iceland. They speak English really well, so communication is obviously not an obstacle there. If you move to various countries and they don't speak English because they're more Latin or Spanish based, then you will obviously have your difficulties. But that's not the main reason why I like them the most. It's because they are very open. So they had a large Excel sheet about all the company finances, and everybody at the company could open it. You could see what is the value of the inventory that they have in terms of laptops and cars, and what is the fuel consumption, how much money are we billing for various customers. So you could see the fruit of your work, like how much money did you generate by just doing that development. And that is a very open insight. And in most of the countries, you don't get this kind of information. The only thing that they hide is the salary, for obvious reasons. You would just see a lump sum of that, but having an open financial book to see how much does it cost to run the company and how much value do you generate. And then once you have spent a couple of years there, you will become a stakeholder. So whatever you create there is actually landing in your pocket as well. I think that's a very beautiful way of motivating the employees to generate meaningful time for invoiceable hours. The other country which I really liked is Australia, where I lived in Melbourne. And that's mainly because I love motorcycling, and it was all year riding season there. So that was more on the outside of work activities side. But in terms of work, why Australians are really great is that they are called very laid back people. So it's especially true there. If you spend 2 more weeks on delivering the solution, you are going to be okay with paying for that. No stress. Just do a good job, deliver 2 weeks later, but do a good job about that. So every Friday, our boss took us out to a corner and buy a jug of beer for the team. So it was 5 o'clock beer o'clock, took us out to the bar. Doesn't matter if you're doing something important, still come out and be with your team, relax some steam, and enjoy yourself. So I would say Iceland and Australia were the best experience for me. If you can go there, definitely try.
Well, I guess that confirms that Melbourne is, for a reason, the most livable city each year.
Yeah.
I think that's how they rate it.
They have the most dense number of bars in the world between any 2 corners, I believe.
So I think that's it about Q&A section. So would you like to move to your demonstration?
Sure. Let me try to spin up the virtual machine.
Yeah, and just to remind people, so feel free to ask any new questions if you have regarding this demonstration or maybe something else that you forgot. So as before, leave it in Q&A section.
So like I have mentioned, we are using Visual Studio for coding, and we've got a unique language for that we call X++, and the data structure is called morphx. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can
Is it-
see.
Okay. So this is our Team Explorer, which is the version control system that we host on Visual Studio. This is our actual company structure. And currently we are doing an upgrade from the on-premises to the cloud system that I'm being charged with. And we are structuring our code in a version control repository on Azure DevOps. So in terms of technology, we use a Microsoft stack, obviously, for pretty much everything. And in the version control, we have our metadata. And you structure the application to various modules, various areas that you're working with. And for our split, we decided that we've got a core module for everything that is low-level change to the system. So like how I do emails, how I schedule batch jobs for time-based execution of tasks. So everything that we do is classified as core. The second level is the operation, which is, I would say, the big spaghetti code of how the business is running. And then we've got the integration interfaces for communicating with external applications outside of the ERP system. And the final piece is the reporting and data science, which we put in the reporting section. Now, if I open what's inside this specific module, this is how the application is structuring itself in the morphx environment. And this is just the file-based, directory-based representation of the application code. But if I go to the Application Explorer here on the left, it will take a minute to open up. This is how ERP system backend looks like. And it's like a very complex project, I would say. And you're mostly relying on the database. And for that, we've got the data type and the data model. And let me open the SQL instance in the meanwhile in the backend. So data types are the Lego elements, the Lego building blocks to create an ERP system. So for that, we've got the data type and the enumeration. Data type is something that in a programming could be an integer, could be a long, a double value. It can be a string with specific length. And enumerations are drop-down selections. So I would say type of order, and that would be base enum. And the enumeration, the base enum would be back order, subscription, open sales order, invoice sales order, delivered sales order, whatsoever. So these are the building blocks that we use for creating new fields in the database. Now, the fields and the are actually being used as a data type in the table. So a table here is actually representing a SQL table, but in a coding style. And for example, one of the most common one is called invent table. Invent table contains all of our items. So item is a good that you can sell, like, I don't know, an ice cream or football, a furniture, whatsoever. And this table is using those data types and enumerations as fields inside. So my item has an item number, which is the item ID. It has an item name and the search name. It has a net weight. So all kinds of item properties are stored in the inventory table. And then I can create indexes for that. So if I want to get information out about my items, I would be able to search primarily on the item number. So for example, if you're a sales personnel, you would probably know by heart the item numbers. So Coca-Cola would be DRK065 at JJ Foods. So I know what is the item code for that, and I punch in DRK065 in the search to create a new order for that as a sales representative. It would be using a covering index on the CQL database. Then we can set relations for this table. Where is my item or item table being used in other tables? It could be a bill of material, like for example, a furniture consists of desk legs and the top of the table, and maybe it has a cable holder. So that would be a bill of material consisting of 3 items, a sub-item for an item of a furniture like a table. And then that would be an external table in a relational database. So like I said, the heart of working with ERP systems is knowing relational databases. So my technical questions for the interview revolve around how to use relational databases and how to be performant about that. Now you can understand why. And if we want to put information together, like my item can have this bill of materials, but I also want to know the name of the item, that would be 2 different tables. For that to put the information together, it could be a query or a view, which is just using joins to put together the 2 different pieces of information. So this is how you create the database backend here. And if I connect to the local SQL Server instance, this is my database, and all the tables which are in my source control in Visual Studio are actually represented in SQL Server as well. I believe the Microsoft Dynamics has more than 6,000 tables out of the box. Obviously, you wouldn't know all of them by heart what they are for, but they are using some smart grouping by saying these tables belong to handling items, these are manufacturing related, these are financial related. So my item would always start with invent as a prefix. And there are hundreds of invent prefixed tables together. So I can quickly find information that belongs together, even if I just look at the database in the backend. Now, one of the skill set that you should have is writing SQL transact SQL statements. So for example, if I want to query the first 1,000 items, I can just create a select statement in SQL Management Studio for that. But if I want to see how many items have a specific item group, for example, let's just try to find one to show you guys what I mean. Let's group by invent product type BR. Then I would be able to write a SQL statement and count how many of my products belong to invent product type BR. Group by this field. And then I would say that group 99 has 1 item, 09 has 2 items, 01 has 3 items, and there are 2,463 items which don't belong to any groups. So being able to query SQL information is very important. Now, if you want to become a data scientist, this will be your main tool pretty much. And then you would also use R language to familiarize yourself with creating data models and how to get information together and do some machine learning about that. So I would say knowing some database skills is super important. I don't think they teach Microsoft SQL here at UoL. They have MySQL and maybe some MongoDB, but the foundations behind these relational databases are the same. So in our tooling in Visual Studio, they are represented like that. And we've got the program code, which are classes. And let's try to come up with something. Ledger Journal Post. These are used to make financial postings against the main account. And I can see the program code by right-click View Code or pressing F7. Now, to be an efficient programmer, you have to know your shortcuts. So I try to use as less mouse clicks as possible. So I know all the shortcuts by heart to cut, paste, insert line, search for information just by pressing the keyboard, because I can save hours throughout the week by just not having to move the mouse around and click, but use shortcuts instead. So it's a tip for everyone. Try to familiarize yourself with the developer environment and use shortcuts as much as possible. Now, if we check the source code, it would look really familiar for you guys. So obviously we've got our public, private, and all sorts of accessibility drivers. You can create a static method. The method here doesn't have a return value, so it is using void for that. You've got an argument profile sent in, and the only big difference that we have compared to a Java or C# kind of language is native CQL support. So let me try to find a select statement maybe. That would be JDM, enable WHS. Yeah, this is a good example. So many of the programming languages like C# is using, for example, LINQ and these kind of query drivers against the database engine. But the X++ language that we use has a CQL-like query engine. So I can do a loop with a while keyword. This means let's loop through my invent table, select the records from there, join an additional table with an inner join that we call product, and define what kind of where clause or relations I have between these tables. So I want to find all my items which have a product type of item. Now, an item could be a regular item or a service item or a bill of material, like I mentioned, for a furniture, which consists of sub-items. We can define these in a CQL query really smart. But everything else that you see, a try-catch block for handling exceptions and errors, these are all familiar things. So if you try to learn .NET development and C# development, or Java, for example, or a little bit of JavaScript, these are all object-oriented programming-based languages, and you can really quickly start using the X++ environment because it's been integrated into Visual Studio, very familiar for VS Code. Everything that you change is automatically checked out in version control for you. So it's a very seamless experience that you do here. And it doesn't take big effort to learn and apply your existing programming knowledge to be able to code in Microsoft Dynamics, because it's just all familiar other than how we do the CQL querying, okay? So calling static methods, doing variable declarations is possible. In this new version, you don't even have to tell what kind of object is it, but like with JavaScript now, you can use the var keyword. It didn't exist in the old versions, but now based on the value assignment that you use, it will immediately allocate that type of variable for the declaration itself. So it's a super modern language as well. You can also use the Visual Studio Copilot for you. So as you start typing, there's IntelliSense, so I can just tap complete and it will immediately insert the table name, the method name, the class name, or whatever I want in a smart way. Not just that, but by describing what you want to do in terms of business functionality, you can use the Copilot to generate code for you in an easy fashion. In terms of documentation, like you guys have asked, we typically put what the class or the method does in the header. We use a specific tagging format for which we can generate documentation, like a Word document out of. And for larger sections and what they do, I just insert the comments in between explaining what they are for, like you can see. Not too excessive, but also useful for any developers who want to learn about that part. So this is the tool we use for programming. Now, after we are done with the modification, it goes to the pending changes, and I can just go ahead and assign a work item. And this is typically, for example, a Jira ticket saying that customer complained that something doesn't work in the system. They open a ticket about it in the Jira ticketing system, and then you make that into an Azure DevOps ticket. And that Azure DevOps ticket can be typed here. So I don't know, 2412, migrate from AX 2012 to Dynamics 365. I add my comment. I have done this change to blah, checking the code, and you can immediately view that in the repository. Now, in the repository, it works as any typical Azure DevOps project. You can see who has done the change, who has done the checkout for the object. You can see what has happened there. Let's see in the history. Something which had more changes. Yeah, so here I can see that my colleague Peter has done 2 error cleanups. And if I want, I can just compare the changes between these check-ins. And if I annotate the code, I can see that Peter has modified the name of the method here from update event to update event JED. And he also updated the documentation for that. So I can track the changes. The version control is integrated straight to Visual Studio. I don't have to go to the cloud. Now, let me try to show the other side, which is the code repository. So all of our code changes are Azure DevOps repos, and you can see the same file structure here. Our metadata and Visual Studio projects are visible on the website, and we got our build pipelines. So we've got a continuous integration, continuous delivery set up. So whenever somebody checks in the changes to the developer repository or test or production, we automatically trigger a script. Let's try to see the log. So the script does this by spinning up a virtual machine in the cloud that is a build machine. It synchronizes the changes from the cloud to the virtual machine, does a build compilation of the source code. It generates artifacts called packages, which is a compiled source code, and then it uploads it to a repository of the ERP system. We can then apply that compiled code to any environment that we have. Microsoft has its own interface for managing these ERP solutions, and this is the one that we use at JJ Foods. So the implementation projects for Dynamics 365 that we currently use for doing the upgrade from the on-premises system to put it on Azure Cloud. And inside this, we've got our project methodology. So here we try to follow a waterfall kind of implementation where we set a date for various key goals inside the project and try to deliver that solution by that key date, and we track what is happening there. And once we do an automated build by the code changes, it goes to a repository called asset library. In the asset library, we've got these deployable packages automatically checked in. So once I check in my code, it's compiled, package is generated, and in the backend, the Azure pipeline uploads it to the Lifecycle Services portal. And now I can tick off and apply this change to any of our environments online in the cloud. So we've got a couple of cloud-hosted environments like developer workspaces, test system, build system, like for example, test02 here. I go to this test02 environment, and I can apply my modifications by doing a maintenance on it. It's all cloud-based. I select maintain, apply, update. it will load my code packages which we have built. I select which one I want to apply to the environment, apply it, and it's now released. This is how typically an ERP system is maintained. Now, you can obviously click through these web interfaces and just do the deployment by hand. Like I said, it saves time if you use scripts. So the other tool that we rely on very heavily is PowerShell. Let me try to open up something for you guys to see. So Windows PowerShell is a scripting language. It's using a more advanced version of what Linux Bash can do for you, or you can call .NET code from here, you can call SQL Server instructions, and it just looks very similar to any kind of programming languages, pretty much. You can say your try-catch finally blocks in the code, declare functions, have parameter profiles for that with default values in it, and this PowerShell script can just do a lot of automation for you. So we don't have to manually copy the code from the repository. It just does it by PowerShell in the background for us. So that's another tool that we heavily use. And then I just want to show you guys how the ERP system actually works and looks like. So when we sign into the Canvas app, this is a Canvas application. Now, obviously, it would be a native Windows app like the earlier version that we currently work on premises, AX 2012. You can have 100 tab pages on a form and a million fields and a lot of buttons to click through. But if you're using web and mobile technology, it has to be a responsive site. And you can't just jam too many information in here. So Microsoft redesigned this. And they try to have more like a worker approach. So what is your job? Are you working with data? Are you creating learning materials for the users? Are you a financial controller and you're doing invoices? So you've got all these workspaces here, and the information they try to show is not so dense, just a couple of tiles, couple of buttons that you actually use. They try to arrange it in a logical way, so all information just fits on one screen or a tablet or a mobile device. So this is very simplified compared to how old application-based software looked like. So they had to apply a lot of web practices. But like the question asked before, we don't do the full stack coding ourselves. So this is all shipped by Microsoft. We don't care about any jQuery, any JavaScript, how these buttons work. We don't care. The application that we code here does all the translation for us. So the code that I write is compiled into .NET CIL. So that's a common language. And the .NET CIL that's being generated from C# can also be done. So in C# you can write this whole code yourself as well and use the AX classes as a proxy. You don't have to program in X++. You can just put all these in a DLL file. And then Microsoft does the conversion for you to use that business operation from CIL or DLLs or whatsoever to be actually rendered on the web page seamlessly. You don't have to write single code for that. If you want to do ERP development, you don't have to do the full stack coding yourself because the IDE does that for you. Okay. So yeah, this is how a cloud ERP solution looks like. The modules that I mentioned earlier for the various areas can be opened on the left. So we've got a ledger, fixed asset, items in the product information management, my sales orders that I sell the goods for, they are all contained in various modules. And inside these modules, they have got the smaller functionality split out. And all these namings that you see inside the modules have their corresponding tags in the source code. As I mentioned, ledger, invent, sales, whatsoever. I think this is plenty of information to process for you guys. I don't want to go more into the technical details unless you guys ask specific questions about it.
Yeah, Vilmos, you did a great job. So you shared a lot of details with us, and I think that people are still under impression. So I think maybe we should give them like a minute or two to ask potential questions, and then we can try to answer those and wrap up this event.
Yeah, definitely great and demonstration of everything you do to every day in your work. And there are already some questions in the Q&A. So Timos asks, do you integrate any unit integration tests in your CI/CD? Are unit tests something that is being implemented in different companies you worked in?
Yes, this is a very good question. Thank you for that. So for the Microsoft Dynamics 365 cloud version, yes, we do have that. And it's based on Selenium because it's a web-based technology, but Microsoft created a more advanced solution for that in-house. They call it RSAT, which is Regression Suite Automation Testing. And it can do more advanced things like it can spun up 500 simultaneous users, so they would be punching in the sales orders in an automated fashion using the script with the RSAT tool, and it would validate the outcomes, saying that does the financial value of that order add up to the certain figure, and is it posted to the correct chart of accounts in the financial balance? Does it add up? Is there anything wrong with it? So definitely we've got the tools for that. Not that many companies are actually using it. It depends really on the company culture. So at JJ's, we are constantly improving the system. We don't have to write something new, but we just have to optimize it. And almost every 1 or 2 weeks, we're releasing code to production. And we can only do that with the confidence if you've got automated testing in place. So we check in the code, the CI/CD pipeline runs, then the code is being validated with the RSAT tool, and we will immediately get flagged if something doesn't add up in the numbers or a process doesn't complete, it gets broken. And then developer is being automatically notified that yes, your code doesn't work, have a look at it. This is the scenario which has failed. So Selenium-based testing with this RSAT tool is there. I think the other ERP systems also support it. I don't know to what degree, but Microsoft has created their own testing tool for it because every change they do and every improvement they do, or maybe they purchase an ISV solution from the partners because they like it and they want to make it available for all customers in the product, they run their regression testing very rigorously. If something fails, it's not going to reach the customers, but Microsoft fixes that in-house. And us as implementation partners and customers, we follow the same approach. So testing is there heavily.
Okay, thank you for sharing. So the final question in the Q&A, Timos. So do you find that ERP systems are switching from Windows Form applications to website portal solutions?
I would say about half of the existing customer base has already migrated. Microsoft is trying to enforce that by not providing support for the on-premises application anymore. So that means if you've got a problem with the system, you cannot open a ticket with that anymore. It's just you can't turn to Microsoft, but only to an implementation partner to fix that for you. So they are trying to enforce it with contracting and SLAs to move to the cloud. And as per their numbers, they have several tens of thousands of customers working already in the cloud solution. And as I mentioned, for the last 3 years, I've been also doing the migration for JJ. Hopefully this year we will be live with the Azure-based solution as well. So web technology is definitely the future. You can see it with the other ERP systems. So SAP for HANA is also, I believe, cloud-based now. They still provide the Business One suite, I think, which is on premises, but they are trying to steer the customers to use the cloud solution. Yeah. So it's more like subscription based now. You don't purchase the full application for millions of dollars, but you're paying for the users. So if you're using the solution with 1,000 users, you pay 1,000 user licenses, and then you can use the entire application, not just specific modules in it like it used to be in the past. So they go for cloud solution and subscription-based model. You can see it in other industries as well, as you guys are aware. So you don't rent any DVDs anymore, but you just pay your monthly subscription to Disney Plus and Netflix and whatsoever. They move towards these models. So SSAS, PAAS, and pay your monthly fees for that.
All right. Thank you very much for all your insights. So that's a wrap for today's event. Um, Again, thank you very much to Vilmos for sharing all these insights from his experience in ERP systems and enlightening us of what this industry is about and what do you do every day and what do you recommend for people who want to get into this job and are just getting started in their IT careers. And also thank to all of you who attended to this event and asked questions in the chat to make this event interactive. So thanks to you and hope to see you in future events from GDSC. Earlier, I shared the links to the UoL page or Instagram page, LinkedIn profile, and our YouTube channel where you can find all the information of future events and the recordings of previous events. We have another Let's Talk Tech event in store, so make sure you don't miss it.
Thank you for the invitation, guys. I really appreciate it, and I hope you get some value out of the discussion.
Yeah, thank you for being on here. We want to give you a very special thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to share all of this. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, just a quick thing. So at the beginning I thought that for this you need to be like a jack of all trades and master of all, and I still think that. But I think that your exhaustive answers definitely help people to understand that becoming a well-rounded individual, it definitely has a learning curve, but I think that people now understand that everything has a starting point. So yeah, I think they will probably feel more confident about their potential journey into this career path. So I hope that our viewers share this opinion.
Yeah, Nicola, you're right. So like I said, you have to know a wide array of technologies, but only if you want to be a jack of all trades and be a solution architect. If you want to be a developer and you want to specialize, that's also completely fine. So you got our mobile developers, web developers for the e-commerce portal. Some people just only do finance coding. Some people do the order to cash and supply chain coding. So if you want, you can choose only a narrow field. If you want to express your creativity, then you can definitely step out of your boundaries and learn new technologies, innovate. So it's up to your preferences what you want to do. And I think that wraps up really well of our choices.
Yeah, so thanks for everything so far.
Yeah,
so
thank you very
I don't know if Sebastian and Cindy have anything to add.
I wanted to add that to tell the audience that there is a recording of this event. It will be posted on the YouTube channel, so please feel free to share it with anyone who wasn't able to make it to the live event or just to any one of your peers. It will be posted very shortly, so look out for that.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Take care,
I
bye.
guess that's a wrap. Bye. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, guys. See ya.
Bye. See you soon.